Good morning, Ren.
Good morning, Carrie. How are you?
Doing great. It's a beautiful sunny day. How are you?
It is great. I wish I was outside, but
I know we should start doing these outside when it's nice out.
ooh, yes, get a little patio thing going.
There you go. I like it. Should we do some introductions to start off here?
Sure, I am Ren, the account executive here at Key Media Solutions.
And my name's Carrie. I am the senior account manager here at Key Media Solutions. And today we're going to jump in and just start talking about how leading agencies build effective media plans.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us today. We're just gonna kind of lead with how we go from like audience research all the way through channel selection and then obviously performance measurement, the part that everyone finds the most important. So instead of just like presenting something to you, we're just kind of walk through it like a conversation. Because let's be real here, these are the same types of questions we're getting from clients every day in our meetings. So if you have a question at any point, just kind of throw it in the chat.
Yes, this is totally something that comes up a lot, especially the how, not just what channels we're using, but how we actually think through that strategy behind it. A lot of times, clients will come in with a few ideas or assumptions, really, and our job is to validate or even challenge those ideas based on data that we gather as a team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really where strong media planning starts. It's not about jumping into platforms, it's about understanding the bigger picture first. So, we're going to kind of break this down into four key parts. One, audience research, the second being aligning to business goals, then channel strategy, and finally, measurement and optimization. So, let's go ahead and start with the foundation, which is the audience.
So, when we say audience research, where are we really starting with that?
So before we touch the budget or channels, we're really asking who are we trying to reach and what do we actually know about them? And this goes way beyond like your basic demographics of like age and like gender and things like that. So it's not just saying women 25 to 44. That's extremely broad. So we also want to know how they're behaving online, what influences their decisions, and where they spend that time online, whether it's going to be social media platforms, just going from website blogs, and what kind of content they engage with really the most, whether it's videos, uh, all text-based things and things like that.
Yeah, so it's truly more about how they're acting versus just who they are as a person.
Exactly, because that's what ultimately informs how we're going to reach them. And this is where we kind of start to see the differences depending on the industry. For example, in manufacturing, you might be targeting engineers, procurement teams, leaders, and things like that for operations. They're not just casually browsing most of the time, they're actually researching, comparing different specs for different products, and looking for the credibility of what you have. Where in financial services, you're dealing with these trust driven decisions, so people are consuming the educational content a lot of times from influencers, and then they're comparing their options, and they take a bit longer to convert. Or there's healthcare. It's often even more nuanced because you have patients and like caregivers or even providers, and they're all interacting with your content differently.
Yeah, and each of those audiences is going to respond completely different to different messages and different channels.
Exactly. And that's why we don't shortcut this step. We're typically pulling from first party client data if it's available to us. Then we'll go to platform insights like Meta or LinkedIn. We can use third party audience tools or we do our own deep dive research like Pew does some great research and analytics into things like this. Then we'll layer it all together with the qualitative insights and then kind of what questions are people asking and what concerns are they having? What's triggering their action to convert?
Exactly. So basically, you're building both a data driven and getting a behavioral understanding.
Precisely. And when you layer that all together and you start to get a really clear picture of the customer, not just who they are, but how they're moving through their decision-making process.
Yes. And that's what sets the foundation for everything else that we do.
Yes, because if we're getting the audience wrong, everything downstream is going to become way less effective. I
Yep,
mean, you can have the best creative, the best channels, even a huge budget, but if it's going to the wrong people, it's not going to perform.
exactly. Um, Now we're just going to move on to aligning with the business goals. So once we understand the audience, the next step is truly aligning that with the client's actual goals, their business goals, because the same audience could have totally different strategies depending on the goal, right?
Yes, and this is where a lot of media plans tend to kind of fall short. They don't clearly define what success looks like upfront. Like we want to know your objectives and the goals and how we're getting there. So if your goal is awareness, we're focused on reach and visibility. And kind of website visits. If we're looking for lead generation, we're prioritizing that high intent engagement, like form fills and things like that. And if it's sales, obviously we want those conversions and how to get there as much efficiency as possible. So the audience tells us where they are, and the goal tells us how we're going to engage them on each platform.
Yeah, and I think this is especially important in industries with the longer sales cycles.
Exactly. So we'll use the same industries that I used before. In manufacturing, you're rarely going straight from ad to sale. It's about generating that interest and then starting conversations. So a lot of times like lead forms, just so you can like have that high quality lead. And then in financial services, you might be nurturing someone over weeks or months before they convert and want a loan. In
Mhm.
healthcare, the goal might not even be an actual conversion. It could just be wanting to educate them or getting the awareness that your clinic is there, or maybe you just want them to book an appointment.
Yeah. So success can look totally different depending on the business.
Exactly. And that's why we always anchor the media plan to the actual business outcomes, not just platform metrics.
Mhm.
And so, with that being said, now we can kind of go into where most people think the medium planning starts, but really it's the third step, which is choosing the right channels.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people jump straight to, let's run social ads, let's run display ads instead of really, bringing this down.
Yeah, precisely. And we are a lot more intentional than that. So clients can come to us with platforms in mind, and we will then go through our process that we've already said so far to evaluate whether it actually fits their objectives or not. I mean, because we're mapping channels to customer journeys. And to put it a little bit more simply, say you want top of funnel just awareness, or you want mid funnel, which is consideration, or the bottom funnel, which is conversion. That's going to make things look a little bit different.
Yeah. So can you give us an example of how that all plays out?
Yeah, of course. So at the top of the funnel, this is where something like data-driven programmatic or DDP advertising, such as display, which are your banners, or connected TV, is really effective. And it's especially useful in industries like manufacturing or healthcare, where you need to build awareness with a very specific audience before they're actively searching on their computers or their phones.
Yeah. And a question we get often too is how do you usually explain data-driven programmatic to your clients?
I'll try to keep it simple. So data-driven programmatic advertising, it's using technology to automate and then optimize how we're advertising online. So instead of manually placing ads, kind of like how you would do in the old days, we use software that analyzes all of the data that we collect in real time to buy ad space across websites, apps, and so forth. So we can reach the right audience at the right time more efficiently.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. I love it.
Yeah, and it works really well for awareness because we can scale that reach while still targeting extremely specific audiences. So no matter your niche, like we can get to them. And then as we move down the funnel, so like mid funnel might include data-driven programmatic video in addition to the display. And then we'll also do some paid social. Your bottom funnel where you want to see those conversions is where we lean into things like paid search and retargeting, where the users are already having some intent there.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of industries differ as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, in financial services, paid search tends to be very strong because users are actively looking for solutions. Healthcare, retargeting, and education-based content play a bigger role. And then you have manufacturing, where platforms like LinkedIn or data-driven programmatic can be really effective for reaching those niche decision makers.
So it's really about guiding someone through a journey, not just showing ads randomly here and there.
Exactly. And then we layer in the budget strategy, making sure we're investing in the right places based on performance and goals. And that's not static. It evolves as we learn what's working.
Yes. And then once everything is planned, the next critical step is measurement. So defining what success actually looks like to the clients, right?
Yes, and this is where we bring everything together. So we're setting KPIs, they're your key performance indicators, based on the goal. If you're wanting awareness, you probably want to know about impressions, reach, website visits. If you're wanting engagement, then you're looking at your clicks, your video views, your form fills. And then if we're looking at conversions, we're kind of looking at that click through rate, who doesn't only click, but also goes where we want them to be. And then your cost per lead, your return on ad spend. And then making sure all of this tracking is set up correctly before we even launch. So these are your pixels, your conversion tracking, and your analytics integrations.
And that setup step is super important.
Yes, because if tracking isn't set up properly, you can't trust the data and you're not going to trust us then, especially in industries like finance or healthcare. Accuracy really matters because decisions are higher stakes.
Yep. And then once those campaigns are live, we're not just setting it and forgetting it.
Exactly. It's not even close. The best media plans are constantly evolving. We're regularly reviewing performance and asking what's working, what's not, where should we shift a budget, or maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah. And can you just give us a quick example of that?
Yeah, absolutely. If data-driven programmatic is driving strong awareness, but only a small amount of conversions, we may keep it as top of funnel driver, but shift a little bit more budget into our retargeting or paid search to capture that demand. Or if we're seeing strong engagement, but low quality leads, we might refine our targeting in our audiences that we're going after, or maybe even our messaging. So it's not about cutting channels, it's about understanding their role within the journey. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. And to wrap this up, if there's one thing to take away, it's this: effective media planning isn't about picking platforms. It's about connecting the dots between your audience, your goals, and your data.
Yeah, and then just continuously optimizing based on what's actually working for the clients.
Exactly. The strongest media plans are strategic from the start, but flexible enough to evolve over time. Because let's be real here, no plan is perfect on day one. It gets better as we learn.
Exactly. And that's really where agencies add value, bringing that structure and that ongoing optimization. So whether it is programmatic, search or social, it's not about using everything. It's about using the right mix in the right way at the right time. All right. Well, I hope this has been super helpful for everybody watching. If not, I mean, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Drop any comments in this post here. Let us know if we can help in any way.
Yes, exactly. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us. Even if you don't have time to ask us questions now, you can always give us a call or email us.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Bye.